Isaac Dietrich of Massroots fame, the founder, sits down and tells us the story of how he figured this all out. He's been running this company, first from Virginia and now from Colorado, starting to scale up as far as the platform itself, as well as his talent. It's a great story. Enjoy. All right, so we've got Isaac Dietrich from Massroots, the Isaac Dietrich. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes.
Thanks for having me.
I know that you're busy, so we'll kind of take a few minutes to make sure that we get your story and hear about the platform. But I mean, the first thing that's obvious to anybody who sees your face is you're not an old person.
Nope. I was 21 years old when I was smoking with my best friend in his college apartment, and we thought that of all of our friends who smoked, almost none of them posted about it on Facebook or Instagram because their bosses, grandmothers, family workers are connected to them on those networks. So we wanted to create an environment where people actually felt comfortable talking about cannabis.
All right, so 21, what school was that?
It was ODU, so I wasn't in college.
Yeah.
So I decided that rather than taking out $50,000 in student loans to go to college, that I would max out $20,000 in credit cards to start Massroots. So I had to tell my parents that, oh, by the way, I'm not going to college, and I'm getting involved in the marijuana industry. And since no VC will fund me, I'm going to max out $20,000 in credit cards. And they nearly shot me, but it's working out so far.
So far, so good. Exactly. Where are you from originally?
Virginia Beach.
Okay, all right. So that's a nice part of the country, not necessarily one with any sort of adult use program.
No, very conservative, very Republican. Probably going to be the last 10 states to legalize.
So for you to have this thought there, was one thing. I know that you're in Colorado now. When did you make that switch?
February 2014. So I packed up everything that I had in the back of my car. We had raised $150,000 in seed capital, but we had burned through all of that, scaling the network to 100,000 users. So we were pretty much out of money, and I decided I needed to be in the middle of the action. So we packed up everything that I had in my car. It was a Honda CR-V at the time, and drove across the country. So.
All right, so a couple things to unpack to make sure that we've got everything. As far as the platform itself, you mentioned 2014. When did you actually start it, though?
So we launched in the App Store in July of 2013. We came to ArcView for the first time when we had 6,500 users. And we met Doug Layton, who was our lead investor, and he ended up writing us a $50,000 check the next week, which we were incredibly grateful for and allowed us to really start scaling the network. And then we reached 100,000 users by spring of 2014. That's when we relocated to Colorado and really started to get serious. We filed our S1. We were one of the first cannabis companies to go public through an S1 registration statement, as opposed to a reverse merger or any of the sketchy shell companies. And then we've been growing like crazy ever since. We recently crossed 625,000 users.
And congratulations on that. Doug actually has been on the podcast and spoke about that meeting at the ArcView event. How did you even know to get to that ArcView event? How did you find that path?
So I was a finalist for Peter Thiel's 20 Under 20 competition back in 2012, and I met a lot of great people there. And in mid-2013, we went out to the Thiel Foundation Summit in San Francisco, and at the time, none of Peter Thiel's funds were investing in cannabis, but they were like, you should go talk to Troy Dayton from the ArcView group. And ArcView at the time was, I think, only 40, 50 members strong. It wasn't nearly what it was today. So they invited us out to the September ArcView meeting, and I went out there, I pitched. We had about 6,500 users, and I actually got the lowest rated pitch of the entire session. So people afterwards were like, you're never going to make money. You're competing with Facebook. This will never work. And I didn't end up talking to Doug after I pitched. But then the next day I got an email from Douglas Layton at Dutchess Capital that he wanted to set up a call the next week. So I was like, oh, well, that's a good sign. So I hopped on the call and he was like, I want to come in for $50,000. I was like, okay.
We can do that.
We can do that. So we're incredibly grateful for all of our great investors and giving us the ability to get to where we are now.
Indeed, and it sounds kind of. It almost doesn't make sense that folks in the audience would not see the play. In other words, you very clearly stated that you put the platform together instead of Facebook, not in competition with Facebook. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that there would be that confusion.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and honestly, we've gone through a lot of scaling problems over the past 2 years. When we first started the app, we didn't think that we would really get more than 50,000 users, and then once we hit 100,000 users, everything started breaking. So then we started reorganizing everything, and that got us to like 300,000 users, and then things started breaking again. So we spent March and April really recruiting the best technical talent that we could find. So Yahoo, PhotoBucket, Tendril all have offices in Denver. So we went around and we found the best developers that we could possibly find and said, what interesting things are you working on at Yahoo? And it's really nothing. So we're like, well, why don't you come help, shape the development of an entire new industry? And oh, by the way, you get stock options at a relatively low valuation. So we were able to recruit the best technical talent in Denver, and they've since been spending the past few months completely re-architecting our app and getting it ready to really break into the mainstream in 2016. So
you're at 625 now, and this restructure, what will that bring you to?
We're hopeful that it will allow us to scale to 5 million users without any significant load time issues, any significant technical issues. We view 2016 as kind of our opportunity to break into the mainstream. So we've kind of captured the hardcore stoner market that is gung-ho about cannabis and consumes cannabis on a daily basis and loves taking dabs, which. But now it's really time to start breaking into the mainstream and appealing to the more casual consumer, because that is where the billion-dollar brands are really going to start to emerge. So we've really spent the past few months putting all of the foundation in place. So that way, when we go into 2016, we're hoping to scale to 1 million users, and then beyond that, really become a mainstream cannabis brand.
Yeah, and it seems like that thinking was in the fiber to begin with when you did the S1. First off, how did you do the S1, knowing that no one else had? And obviously that is full of long-term thinking, making sure to do that all the way back then, right?
Yeah, so we're fortunate in that we're a technology company that just so happens to be focused on the cannabis space. So we don't face a lot of the same issues that businesses touch the plant do. We are able to accept credit cards. We don't have that many banking issues. We have gotten turned away from banks, but it's nothing too crazy. But from the S1 perspective, we looked at the S1s of Facebook, Twitter, really saw what worked for them. What messaging they used when talking to technology investors on Wall Street, and we really modeled ours after what they had already accomplished. And then going through the SEC comment process, they asked us questions on our financials, on our corporate history. On pretty much everything, and it's just being able to respond intelligently in a rapid manner, and really show that you're not out to hide anything. We're very clear that our technology is used by cannabis consumers all around the country, or in the 23 states with medical cannabis laws. So it was quite the experience.
Indeed, to say the least. All right, so you had the S1 filed, and you are public, and then there's a little bit of news there as well, right?
Yeah, well, actually, when we went public back in September, our S1 went effective in September of 2015, and then a month later, we got a call from Apple that we had been kicked out of the App Store. So, Thank the Lord we were not trading at the time, because our stock would have absolutely gotten pummeled. But we're incredibly fortunate that to have such a strong user base and such strong support from the cannabis community to really be able to affect regulatory change at Apple. And then that's really what gave us the narrative and really showed investors that this isn't just an app full of potheads. This is like a legitimate following, legitimate people that are really trying to organize, connect with each other, and share their cannabis experiences. So we started trading in April. We've been able to sustain a $50 million market cap for some time now, which is really the major requirement that's needed to get to a major U.S. exchange. We applied for the NASDAQ in late August. We're in the process of meeting the requirements now. That's a multi-week process that we expect to hopefully wrap up late 2015, early 2016, and that would put us in a position to be one of the only cannabis stocks traded on a major U.S. exchange going into the 2016 election cycle, when 40% of the U.S. population is going to have cannabis on the ballot.
Amazing. And so that is, you do feel that Q1 is possible, or Q2?
It's a multi-week process. I don't have an exact idea of timing. But I think that it is possible late this year or early in 2016.
All right, and we are speaking November 10th even of 2015, just to make sure that everybody understands the dates whenever they listen to this. So you come from this very conservative place. Just let me ask one more question about your folks. I mean, when they said that they were almost going to shoot you, are these gun-carrying citizens, or are these Second Amendment enthusiasts? I mean, how serious are you about how conservative they were about it?
Oh no, my parents weren't. They're I have great parents. They're very open-minded, but it's just kind of the being able to go against the trend, even in an area as conservative as Virginia. So.
Indeed, and you are you're certainly nationwide, and how much of your user base is international?
So we have a large and growing user base in Canada, which is where we're starting to really focus our attention now that it's going to be federally legal, not just medical cannabis, but recreational. And then we also have a large user base in Spain, Barcelona, Madrid. So.
Absolutely, and those are two very different cities, as they will tell you.
Oh yes, but we're just incredibly excited, and it's awesome to see that this is not just a U.S. phenomenon. This is worldwide.
All right, and so just as far as the name of the company, the etymology of Massroots, give that to us, and then I'll give you three final questions.
Mobile grassroots is actually what it is. So it's and Mass is kind of big, so we want it to be like big grassroots blown up.
It makes all the sense in the world. All right, so the three final questions, I'm going to give them to you in order, and then I'll ask you them. The first one is, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
Okay.
The second is, what has most surprised you in life, in your young life? And then the third one is, on the soundtrack of Isaac Dietrich's life, name one song, name one track. So first things first, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
The speed at which all of this is taking place. So when we first started, it was Colorado and Washington, and since then, we've added 2 states of Washington and Washington D.C. and 2016 is going to be just a absolutely huge year. So it's just the speed, and no one saw Canada coming. Back in 2013, no one would have possibly predicted was gone down.
Well, first off, as far as Canada is concerned, we talked to Jamie Shaw from the CAMCD the day after the election, because no one thought that was going to happen the day before. Not, you know what I mean? Like, not even a couple of months ago, like the day before, no one thought that was happening. So we've got a friend up there, definitely.
I think that's kind of the model. That's what's going to happen in the U.S. And everyone's like, well, it's a couple years away, and people will keep saying it's a couple years away up until literally the day before it happens. Yeah. And it's going to come as a shock to, a significant percentage of the population. And it's a huge opportunity. Indeed,
and just to kind of throw this in there, the Supreme Court in Mexico also kind of making waves as far as legal cannabis, right?
Oh yeah, and that will be huge because that can help end the international drug war.
One of many things, right? So okay, so as far as your young life is concerned, what has most surprised you so far?
Jeez. Well, it's a learning experience. So I've learned more in the past 3 months of dealing with public companies than I have ever learned my previous 23 years combined. And it's really you don't learn things in school anymore. You learn things by going out and actually doing them and executing. So yeah.
Well, now as a Peter Thiel guy, you're starting to sound maybe a little Peter Thiel. Can you give us a little insight on him and what he's like from your interaction with him?
I met him briefly back in 2012, and he's very friendly, and he's really out to share his wisdom and advice with as many people as possible. I encourage people to read his book 0 to 1. That's kind of like how to build $1 billion business. That's his whole focus now.
Right, 3 commas, right?
Yep.
All right, so we've got a fair amount of information from you. This is either the easiest question to answer or the hardest. As far as your soundtrack, name one track.
Life's Been Good by the Eagles.
Oh, come on now. And let me just correct you really quickly.
Joe Walsh.
It's Joe Walsh specifically,
Yep.
exactly. And that's why we're fans. So fantastic. Isaac Dietrich, thanks so much. You're doing huge things. And we expect to talk to you when you pass the 10 million mark. How about that?
Works for me. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
So there you have it, Isaac Dietrich. Massroots, quite a story, and he's really building something there. So 625,000 members now, on his way to 10 million. Let's see how quickly he gets there and what the story is when he does. Isaac Dietrich, Massroots.